The Run Lift Mom podcast is brought to you by my efforts as a Zaya Active independent representative and partners Hello Woofy for social media, Red H Nutrition, and Audible. Audible is the newest of this lineup, and if you want to try Audible free, all you've got to do is visit audibletrial.com/runliftmom. Welcome to the Run Lift Mom podcast, where we're talking about running, lifting, and momming, not necessarily in that order. I have got a re-release for you today. It is squarely in the momming category, and you guys, this is one of the most powerful interviews that has ever been done on Run Lift Mom. It is with Lara McGregor, founder of Hope Scarves, which is a nonprofit for breast cancer research. Lara's personal story created that nonprofit, and you guys, in 2007, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, wait for it, when she was 7 months pregnant. You're going to hear the most powerful parts of this interview as Lara talks about having a healthy recovery and then being diagnosed again. She is currently living with metastatic breast cancer. It is a terminal breast cancer. If you don't know the difference, that's why I need you to hear it. This is only a portion of this interview. I'm going to link the full interview from season 1, episode 51 below. But you guys, without further ado, here is a hugely inspiring Lara McGregor of Hope Scarves.
I was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 30 years old and 7 months pregnant with our second child. And I had been leading a very healthy pregnancy, doing all the things, you're supposed to do to be as healthy as possible. And it just really came out of nowhere. I actually had gone for a 3-mile run the morning of my 7-month checkup with my OB. And when I went in, I was running through the list of questions I had, and one of which was this bit of discomfort I had in my left breast that I assumed was just pregnancy changes. And luckily, he was suspicious, and he immediately sent me off for a biopsy. And what we assumed was just a clogged milk duct basically set in motion a crazy spiral that has been the last 12 years. I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer, and, cancer is hard to hear at any point in your life. Certainly being 30 years old, no family history, and pregnant was really earth-shattering.
I just want to pause and make sure that people are hearing you say you're 7 months pregnant. You're a healthy woman. You're 7 months pregnant. Your nursery was probably getting, decorated at this point. I'm sure cancer was the furthest thing from your mind when you went in for that OB appointment and said, hey, this kind of feels funny on the left side.
Oh, yeah. I was completely an afterthought. The doctor was actually like halfway out the door when I was like, oh, wait, Dr. Sharp, I have this one other thing I wanted to mention to you. And, it was just not even on my, radar. But I am so fortunate that he was immediately concerned, and I had an endocrine sensitive cancer, which means it was fueled by the estrogen in my body. And so this actual fact of being pregnant was like, feeding my cancer, which made it an even more dangerous situation. Having an estrogen sensitive cancer when estrogen is just pulsing through your body.
So they stage it at 2, but because you're pregnant and that estrogen is feeding it, wow, that is a very scary scenario. So at that point, do they take the baby or do they start chemotherapy?
We ended up doing a lumpectomy right away to see if we could just get clear margins and get the cancer out. We were not able to be successful in that surgery. And so I started chemotherapy, and I can remember just walking into the OB's office that morning, to the oncologist's office that morning. And the lady at the front desk actually told me I was in the wrong place, that the OB was on the floor above us. And I just looked at her with tears in my eyes and said, no, I'm in the right place. I'm here to see Dr. Harvey. And I started chemotherapy. Then I had a drug called adriamycin cytoxin, which is called the Red Devil. And it's so toxic, they have to pump it by hand into your veins. And, here I am leading this like incredibly healthy pregnancy, and I'm not eating, eating healthy, I'm microwaving my lunch meat, I'm not drinking caffeine, I'm just having, trying to create the most ideal situation for our baby. And I'm pumping toxic chemicals directly into my veins as I, rest my hand on my belly and feel our baby kicking. It was completely surreal. And it just been a really life-altering experience, for our young family. But we had 4 rounds of chemo together, my son and I. And so I lost my hair. So, I'm fully pregnant, bald. When a box shows up in the mail from a friend of a friend who I had never met, and it was full of scarves. And it meant so much to me to get these scarves from Kelly, because I hadn't really given much thought to losing my hair. I was so consumed with, the health of our baby. So it was a very practical gift as I was facing chemo, but also just so inspiring, knowing this other young mom had faced cancer. It just helped me have that same strength and courage, that she did. And so Bennett and I had 4 rounds of chemo, and then he was born healthy and at full term. And one of the kind of, laughable moments in the midst of all of this craziness was he was actually born with bright red hair. And I have no red hair in my family. And, it was just a complete kind of like surprise. But he'd had this red chemo, together.
The Red Devil.
Yeah. So he just kind of became known as our little chemo baby. And to this day has that same bright red hair. And, really is just a reminder, every time I look at him at, just the miracle that he was for our family, and just that he, is healthy. And in a way, the pregnancy was fueling my cancer, but I also think it alerted me to the cancer. I was 30 years old. I wasn't, going to have a mammogram for another 40 years or another 10 years, if I waited till I was 40, which now was even sometimes later than that. And then I, wasn't really going to the doctor on a regular basis because I was so healthy. So I think that pregnancy also brought the cancer out and helped us, be able to start treating it. And I choose to look at that as the, as a positive instead of the negative of the, being diagnosed while I was pregnant. So it did feel like that time in our life was kind of ripped, from us. And so to be just such a happy, joyful time of, welcoming a baby. And instead it was just wrought with fear and, sickness and worry.
The OB appointment. I mean, I love your point about, in a way, he saved your life.
Yeah. I mean, the pregnancy probably pushed it and made it grow, but it caused me to recognize it and feel it and take action. So it was completely a crazy time for all of our family. I often explain cancer treatment as like living in an alternative reality. You're just completely existing, almost separate from the world, and it can be very isolating, even, surrounded by people who love you and care for you, but it can be really isolating. So then after he was born, I actually went back to chemo 9 days later. So I had to continue my chemotherapy, and I had 7 more rounds of another more toxic chemo that I couldn't have while I was pregnant with him, and followed that up with a double mastectomy and reconstruction. And I came home from those surgeries on Mother's Day to my 3-month-old baby and 2-year-old older son. And so it was, like I said, it was just a whirlwind of fear and worry, and, just being a young mom, and, facing cancer. But, through all that, as, many people with early stage breast cancer, you face it with hope and determination and a clear path of treatment that, hope will be able to, put the cancer in remission. And that is what we achieved. So after about a year of treatments and, surgeries and chemotherapy, I had a clear PET scan and looked like everything was good. And so we were, came out of it really incredibly grateful for that. And it gave me the opportunity to reflect on, all of the experiences that we had had. And one that just stuck out to me so much was receiving those scarves from Kelly. And so I reached out to her to get her address and see if I could send them back to her and thank her for sharing them with me. And she said, just find somebody else who can use them. And so I packed them up and took them to a conference for young women diagnosed with breast cancer. And I met a woman from Pittsburgh named Roberta, and I showed her how to wear the scarves and encouraged her at the start of her treatment, with the same love that had been shared to me from Kelly. And I realized that in passing the scarves on to Roberta, how much they meant not only in receiving them when I needed them, but also passing them on and encouraging someone else and just sharing my love, and strength with someone else allowed me to heal. And that experience really became Hope Scarves. So I started in my spare bedroom of my house with my 2-year-old volunteer by my side, and, just kind of took this experience that I had with, Kelly and Roberta, and thought, how can I create the same sense of connection for other women? And so I wrote a business plan and, created a website and attended a couple of conferences where I brought the idea, to the world. And it was just amazing, the immediate response that people had, that they wanted to share their stories. They wanted to give their scarves to someone else. And so we created a program where scarves are shared in 3 ways. So we have a personal request program where you can request a scarf for yourself if you're going through treatment for any type of cancer or experiencing hair loss from another, injury or illness. And then we have a gift scarf program where you can send a Hope scarf to someone who is in treatment, and you can write a personal note that goes right inside with the package. And that part really grew from so many people asking me, what did you appreciate when you were going through treatment? I have a friend who's starting treatment. What should I do for her? And so the gift scarf program allows people to share a practical gift that also is really inspirational. And our gift scarf program is actually, just almost as high as our personal request. So I love that we can provide support to other people, supporting people they care about.
Can I get you, Lara? I don't want to glaze over this part. Can you tell us the difference between metastatic breast cancer and other types of breast cancer?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for asking. So I was originally diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer in 2007. 7 years later, in 2014, I developed some low back pain that I thought was just some running discomfort. I'd been training for a trail marathon and was doing a lot of trail running. But an MRI revealed I had a fist-sized tumor in my sacrum. And with a biopsy, we discovered that it was metastatic breast cancer. So that means the cells that were causing this large tumor in my bone were breast cancer cells. And that is what metastatic means. It means it's spread beyond the primary spot of your cancer diagnosis, so for beyond the breast tissue and breast cancer. And in metastatic breast cancer, it typically spreads to your bones, your lung, your liver, brain. It spreads to other places as well. Those are typically the primary areas. And what people don't realize is that breast cancer stage 1 through 3 are, treatable and often.
It's easy, right? It's easy to like wear pink and paint everything pink, and pink is beautiful and it's kind of in fashion come October. But I mean, the numbers that you just threw out there, Lara, they are staggering. And so so the money that Hope Scarves raise, I'm assuming goes directly to metastatic breast cancer research.
Right. So we have two funds at Hope Scarves. So one is our general fund, which helps fund our Scarves and Story program. It helps send scarves around the country and support all of our scarf and story collection and distribution. And we added a research fund after my metastatic diagnosis that is directly supports metastatic breast cancer research. And so when you give to the research fund, 100% of that money goes to metastatic breast cancer research. And we have an anonymous donor that matches every dollar 1-to-1. Once it's treated, it doesn't come back. So you're in remission and you hear people living, long, healthy lives. No one dies of breast cancer in their breast. So that's like important for people to realize. If you have a friend who has breast cancer in their breast, it's hard. I mean, all of the story I just shared of all the experiences and the treatment and the scans and the chemotherapy and the surgeries, it's very hard. But as long as it's contained to your breast, you can live. Mm-hmm. It's once the cancer spreads beyond your breast and becomes metastatic, that's a terminal diagnosis. So if somebody dies of breast cancer, they die of metastatic breast cancer. And we all know the statistic that 1 in 8 people, will be diagnosed with breast cancer. But what people don't realize is of people diagnosed with breast cancer, 1 in 3 will progress to metastatic disease.
Wow.
And that can be 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Yeah. It can be at any point after their initial treatment. And 1 in 3 breast cancer survivors will become metastatic. The average life expectancy with metastatic disease right now is 2 to 3 years. And 115 people die every day of metastatic breast cancer in the United States. And all of those facts were really kind of hidden from me as an early stage breast cancer survivor. And I think if you talk to most breast cancer survivors and many people who walk and, walks and, wear pink and celebrate, breast cancer during the month of October, this kind of elephant in the room is metastatic disease. And it's just not something that is talked about. And it really was very eye-opening to me when I was thrust into, this metastatic world in 2014 to realize I thought I had a double mastectomy, no boobs, no cancer. How was I going to have breast cancer if I didn't have boobs?
Yeah.
That is not how breast cancer kills you. It doesn't kill you in your breast. It kills you when it spreads to other parts of your body. That's metastatic breast cancer or stage 4 breast cancer. And what's staggering, and very eye-opening to us, here at Hope Scarves and to me as a metastatic patient was how little that was talked about, how very few people understood that, and how even me as a breast cancer survivor, I didn't want to think about that. I didn't, I kind of maybe glanced over some of that information, and that wasn't me. I didn't want to read that part. I didn't want to think about reoccurrence. It's terrifying to early stage, breast cancer patients to think about it. But the reality is, I think we need to educate ourselves on the facts. And the scariest fact of all is that of all the millions and millions and billions of dollars raised for breast cancer awareness, and in the name of breast cancer, less than 5% goes to metastatic breast cancer research. So money that is used to save people's lives. Billions of dollars have been spent on prevention and awareness, and it's just time for a change. My diagnosis shook our organization, and that we were like a lot of other cancer organizations, and that we were, sharing the happy stories of people who had beat cancer and, go on and live your life and, find, gratitude and a more meaningful, purpose after cancer and, sharing all these happy stories. And when I was faced with this terminal illness, it was like, what the hell? We're completely missing the point here. I could no longer find hope in beating cancer because that was not available to me. And so we took out all the language about beating cancer at Hope Scarves, and we changed it to facing cancer. And we talk about living life over cancer instead of placing our hope in beating it. We talk about just living each day and living a life of intention and gratitude, over this cancer diagnosis. And that allows us to encompass
over it. I love that.
Yeah, and it allows us to encompass advanced stages so much more than I think a lot of cancer campaigns that just talk about like, you're a warrior, you beat cancer. And then for someone like me who I have stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. It is not going to go away unless we have, advances in science and treatment options. Right now, there is no cure for metastatic breast cancer. But so that somehow I don't feel like I fit into this category of like beating it. And, I somehow I'm less strong because I can't beat it. And I'm not, so we just changed all that language. And it really made our organization just a deeper, more thoughtful organization to recognize that whatever stage that you're facing cancer and living life over cancer. And that if we were truly going to change the way people experience cancer, that the scarves and the stories are inspirational and they're practical, when you're facing treatment. But if we really were going to change the way people experience cancer, we had to invest in science and we had to be part of furthering understanding and finding more treatment options. And so our research fund focuses specifically on metastatic breast cancer. And we've raised $300,000 over the past 3 years, which has been matched 1-to-1 for a total investment of $600,000 in metastatic breast cancer research.
Wow. I mean, it's amazing. And I know that listeners like Jaw is on the, car floor, wherever they're listening to this. Yes, guys, you are listening to a woman that says, I have a terminal diagnosis. And I hope it fires everybody up to hear you, describe truly living life. I mean, you're taking life by the horns. No, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. Unfortunately, you kind of know how that's going to happen.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. I mean, after my original diagnosis, I went into a pretty dark depression and was really terrified and really scared. And the statistics and the reality was, it was horrible. And I lost many friends in the first year of my treatment that I had learned and, about, connected to, and then I just watched them die. I made a conscious decision, and I have to reaffirm, this choice almost daily, that I can't live in the perceived future. I have to live right now, today, and make choices that allow me to live with gratitude and joy. And I am a person of action. And so I had to do something to try to help other people facing this disease. I realized that the work we're investing in, the science that, we're funding is probably not going to save my life, but it's going to lay, a couple, stones in a path that's going to lead us to advancing treatment options for other people facing this disease. And that's what we want to be a part of, that we have created a community here at Hope Scarves that, about supporting each other and celebrating, our lives and the connection that we have and, shared, our shared story of facing cancer. But then we double down on research to recognize that we want to try to be part of the change. And I think that's the message that, I am screaming from the rooftops this October. I talk about getting on my hope box and, that like as everything turns pink is, to really ask some questions about how money is being used. Now it's time to shift our focus onto research and specifically on metastatic breast cancer research, because if we can find treatment options to make metastatic breast cancer a chronic disease, something that you can live with, with treatments, then the trickle-down effect to people with earlier stage breast cancer is incredible. If you don't have to fear, being the 1 in 3 that advances to metastatic disease and dies, we're all better off. And so I really encourage early stage breast cancer patients to not be afraid of the metastatic story or the metastatic patient because they represent, your biggest fear, but instead, become their ally, rally around the need for research and the focus on supporting people with metastatic disease, just help understand the facts and demand more money for research.
Thank you so much for listening to the Run Lift Mom podcast. I want to let you know that you can swipe up in the podcast player that you're in to see the show notes. That's going to take you to my website and you're going to get a deep dive on today's show. Cool, huh? You could think of it as a blog post that complements what was covered today with all of the links and resources discussed. Don't forget to check out the podcast partners as well with some really great offers for you. And until I get into your earpiece again, remember, for while bodily training is of some value, godliness is of value in every way, as it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come. That's from 1 Timothy 4:8, and this has been the Run Lift Mom podcast. Hey, Run Lift Mom listeners, you know I'm the mom of 4 kids under age 5, and therefore I am always looking for ways to work smart, not hard. Anchor is the smartest way to make a podcast. Let me tell you why. First of all, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, but Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so then it can be heard on places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a whole lot more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It is quite literally everything you need all in one place. And y'all, it's free. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Even though this is a presidential election, there are many more candidates on the ballot besides the president. Go to Ballot Ready for a nonpartisan guide to your entire ballot. From there, you can compare candidates based on stances on issues, biography, or endorsements, and save your choices to use when you vote by mail or in the voting booth. You can even request your absentee ballot or make a plan to vote early or on Election Day. This election matters. Make sure you have a plan to vote and stay informed. You can go to ballotready.org and enter your address to make a plan to vote and vote informed.
Thank you for listening to Run Lift Mom. This show is sponsored by Zaya Active, Audible, and Radiance Nutrition.